cranked up to 11 because it's one louder. It's the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. The Medicare podcast that reuses and recycles its jokes. And now he can't decide between green and black olives. It's Medicare expert Doug Jones.
Well, this is a special day at the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. We are doing a special activity today, and I can't wait to tell you about it. I can't wait to share it with Randy. What's happening here is very reminiscent of the slave labor that I spent 6 weeks in Illinois performing, which is moving everything I own from one place to another, and finally running out of steam, contracting pneumonia and COVID all at the same time. It like to kill me. Well, I'm doing it again, ladies and gentlemen. And if Randy weren't all the way on the other side of Black Mountain, I'd be asking him to help me out. But what we're doing here, in addition to the activity that I just described to you, is addressing those people who are concerned about their soon-to-be transition from Obamacare to Medicare. They're crossing the great divide and saying, aha, what am I going to do now? Well, in order to cross the divide, you've got to make 2 or 3 decisions. They're not horribly complex, but they can be important because sometimes those decisions are hard to change once you've made them and executed them. So you want to be careful. You want to maybe talk to somebody, like me, to get a little bit of advice or to find out what the possibilities are. And then once you've executed your decisions with the help of a licensed insurance agent, such as myself, then you can walk out into the bright sunlight of your Medicare existence, and you'll have very, very little to concern yourself about. If you have to go to the doctor, you show them an ID card. The staff, the doctor doesn't want to have anything to do with the filthy lucre that his practice generates, but his staff will be asking you for ID cards. And then once you've handed over your ID cards, the billing for your medical treatment is going to go off into the ozone. It'll land on some desk at the federal government. And when that bill comes back, it's going to be a much smaller amount of money than the doctor had hoped to collect for his services. But Medicare will have taken care of it. And if you do like I do, or like I recommend, you're going to have a little bit of money to pay out of your pocket for medical treatment, but you're going to have a very, very cost-effective medical insurance policy called a Medicare supplement that's going to allow you the freedom to go to any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States and its possessions. And it allows beautiful freedom of choice, unlike Medicare Advantage plans, which we rarely have a good word to say about. Randy's shaking his head. So now that I mentioned Randy, this is what we normally do on one of the 2 episodes that we record every time we sit down to do this. And this is to play our 30-second radio spot, which tells people how to access the information that we have to offer. And Randy's probably going to do that right now if I just quit pounding my gums. One moment, please. Medicare is complicated. Medicare can be confusing. Medicare is no fun to study. Will you know what decisions to make when Medicare time arrives for you? My name is Doug Jones, and I wrote a book to help you figure it all out. Medicare for the Lazy Man. It's on sale at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Also, you can download and listen to my podcast, Medicare for the Lazy Man, wherever fine podcasts are given away free of charge. Medicare for the Lazy Man, simplest and easiest guide ever. Okay, thanks, Randy. Once again, I like that. I like the band. We asked them to play over and over and over again. They had to play that same music many, many times until we got it right. But I think that's a keeper anyway. It's fairly succinct, and it tells you that you can get the information we have to share by coming to the podcast, and that's where you are right now. So let me ask Randy to join us. Randy Carson, engineer par excellence. How are things going for you today?
Very well, Doug, and thanks for asking. I was gonna say it's very obvious that you're back in your happy place because you got a smile on your face, you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and bottom line is you just look a whole lot better and a lot smilier than you did out there in Illinois.
Well, that's a wonderful observation for you to make, but you might remember that at the very beginning of this recording, I made reference to the fact that there is an activity going on that's reminiscent of that horrible experience I had in Illinois, and that is, for some reason, we decided to paint the bedrooms and bathrooms here. So we've got 2 master suites, giant walk-in closets, 3 bathrooms, and they're all off limits right now. And Mary and I have spent the last 24 hours emptying them out. It's been a nightmare. So that's the thing that has caused me to be less than organized for this podcast recording. All I have is a bunch of mailbag stuff. Now, I know that the mailbag allows you to get into the chip with fewer arguments. And
It does.
So I'm hoping that this will be worthwhile for you, as well as helping me to reduce the pile of paper I'm surrounded by.
Well, this, by the way, this is March 1st. This is a banner day because not only is it March 1st, the beginning of a new month, as Doug said, he's redecorating, repainting the Fortress of Solitude. Those of you who have been with us for a number of years, we've been at this, it's almost 3 years now?
No, I'd say just over 2.
Just over 2? Well, there's a description that you may have missed over the course of time that we consider this studio that Doug is broadcasting from right now as the Cave Creek Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, it's a lot warmer than somebody else's Fortress of Solitude was. That was up at the North Pole, but this is where I do my best work, my best thinking, staring out the window at the beautiful blue sky and the mountains of Arizona.
Well, I can tell you're in a happy place because when you log in for the podcast recording sessions, you're always looking happy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to get after it.
Well, I'm ready to get after it right now. Should I do a little mailbag?
Yeah. As we used to say back in the Middle West, let's get after it.
Okay, let's do that. First item comes from a guy named Steve. Now, Steve has warmed up to the podcast, and he says, Doug, this is not necessarily a Medicare-centric question, but he says, Doug, is the buffalo chip in Arizona near Phoenix? Wifey and I want to go there. Love the podcast, especially all the humor, personal stories, which we all have, but you guys bring them to life. And then you talk about dumb, necessary Medicare. Thanks, Randy and Doug. Feel free to share my comment on your great podcast or not. I still love it. And so I had to respond. How do you leave, that hanging without any sort of encouragement? So I said, Steve, the chip is in Cave Creek, just about 30 minutes north of downtown Phoenix. I hope to see you both inside there one day. In the meantime, your very nice message will be part of some future episode. You may count on it. So that was, I lived up to my promise there. And I'm always happy when people like this Steve and our other friend Steve respond to what we're doing on the podcast, and it's a rewarding thing. Now here's another guy who is a client of ours, and he has oh boy, this is a fairly thick exchange here. He says, This is more useful. This is actual Medicare stuff. When my Medicare clients come to me and they say, what should I buy in order to complete the protection that I need as part of my Medicare program? And when I do that, I say, well, here is why. If they've read the book, they already know why. But I say, here is the best protection you can get, which is Medicare supplement. In addition to that, you're going to need a drug plan. And you're going to need a drug plan even if you don't take any prescription medication, because the government will come after you. If you decide 10 years down the road that you want a drug plan that's that you could have bought earlier, then they will penalize you. They'll charge you extra money for the time that you failed to purchase, but you were eligible to purchase. So if you don't buy it when you're first eligible, you're going to incur a lifetime late enrollment penalty. So I recommend to my people, let's get you the cheapest drug plan there is. Currently, that's from Aetna. It's called Silver Scripts, and it's about $690 to $730 per month. And that payment will protect you from a lifetime late enrollment penalty if down the road, when you're 75 or 80, you decide you need a drug plan because you're taking expensive medications. So everybody at least gets the lecture as to why it might be a good idea to buy a drug plan. So this gentleman, Jules, was one. He was no exception. And he said, today I received verification. Let's see. I think I marked this backwards. Basically, he sent me a photograph or a picture of a notification he got from the drug plan that I sold him. And this is a drug plan that is really the most cost effective. And this warning was indicative of the fact that he did not give them the information they were looking for to withdraw money every month from his checking account to pay that $7 premium. And so it started out with a report from Jules. And well, you know, if I I've got like 5 pages here with a lot of rambling back and forth, but Jules said they asked him for verification and a signature that would authorize the company to draw money from his checking account. And I already did that as part of the application process. What I do is I make sure everybody signs all the forms that are necessary to sign, that they understand that the company is going to reach into their checking account once every month and withdraw the premium for the product that they're buying. And so to have them get a notification that something is wrong after the fact is a little bit disappointing to me. So I asked Jules to send me a copy of this thing. And basically, it says there are 4 possible reasons why we might be asking you for this additional authorization to withdraw money from your bank account every month. And the 4 reasons are ridiculous. They are that the request was not signed, and that's not true because I asked everybody to sign all required documents. The second reason they offer was that a check or savings account direct deposit form from your bank was not included. Well, they never ask for that. They have their own little form, which I use religiously. The third possible reason for this, they say, is that they requested the deduction to occur on a specific date, which is not a date that's, where the bank is open for business. And then the fourth reason they say that they might be asking for additional signatures and stuff is the authorization statement was altered, making the agreement void. And I told Jules, I said, hey, none of these things is correct. And I listed the thing. I said, the request typically only requires signatures if the account belongs to someone else. And that someone else has to authorize the company to pay for the applicant. Number 2, this was not supposed to be a requirement, but could be the reason, which was number 2 was the check or savings account direct deposit from the bank was not included in the request. So I don't know. There were 4 reasons that it might have screwed up and required his additional signature. And there were 4 reasons why I thought that was bogus. And after he did some more research and talked to somebody on the phone, which I don't really enjoy doing that. He says, you know something? I think this was the product of an overzealous clerk at the insurance company who wasn't paying attention to what was submitted with the application. So anyway, if you have a drug plan that I've suggested that you buy because it's going to be the least costly for you and the drugs you take and the pharmacies that you like to go to, and that drug plan, after you have purchased it, comes back and tells you that you got to jump through some more hoops, I believe that's going to be wrong. That is a thing that Jules discovered it. I hadn't heard about it. And he went back and talked to them in greater detail and decided that it was a mistake, that they actually were twisting his arm for more information. So thank you, Jules, for showing everybody that mistakes can happen even in a Medicare environment in which these things should be by the book. They should be wrote and no mistake should be made. So what do we have here? We've got another Steve. this is our buddy Steve from Texas. And he says, these are actually from my wife, Carol. They're similar to questions that I might ask. We're talking about some of the shortcomings of Medicare, such as one of my doctors not accepting Medicare and another accepting it but charging a bit more. That bit more would be 15%. If a doctor accepts Medicare assignment, that means he's going to accept what Medicare allows him to charge without any question. If a doctor does not accept Medicare assignment, but he does accept Medicare payment, then he is allowed to, if he wants to, charge 15% over and above his regular Medicare allowable charge. And then there's a third type of doctor who will not accept Medicare payment at all. And he can charge the patient whatever he wants to, but those doctors are kind of rare. They're few and far between. Mostly people want to deal with doctors that accept Medicare assignment. So anyway, Steve's wife was wondering if someone Medicare age, and I've got to tell my phone to quit making noise, could buy a policy similar to what we had when we were gainfully employed. And let's see here. So I responded to Steve. He went on to say, I said, if you happen to get a job with a company who offered insurance, you could sign off for it. And I believe it would be primary to Medicare, but you would still want to stay on Medicare Part B and the supplement because it may be difficult to get back on them if you left them. And this is Steve talking to his wife. He said, I said a person of means could self-insure and pay out of pocket for everything. They would still be better off having Medicare and paying for what it didn't cover. How did I do so far? Steve is asking me. I said that I thought companies that offered you a group plan were self-insured. Now, that is a whole nother subject that he and I have discussed in the past. His wife said she thought a company that she worked for at one time was not self-insured, that they had this gal who was, I guess, an insurance broker, look at the rates and set them up with a company, usually Humana. The company only had about 50 people working there. I said, I didn't know if this was possible because on group insurance, people usually take out more from it than they put in, and the insurance company couldn't break even unless they charged a whole lot more money for that policy. So, and here's this question, do some companies who offer group insurance, are they self-insured or are they not self-insured? The place had about 50 people working there, but I thought it was companies who had over 20 people that had to follow more government regulations. Thanks, Steve. My answer is mercifully short. I said, Steve, as always, you're a great source of ideas. Right now, we are laboring to empty the family manse. This was back in December. We're laboring to empty the family manse before closing at the end of January. Plus, I am later than I have ever been with next year's book. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your lovely wife. As soon as these two big jobs are finished, I'll be looking to tap into your wisdom. All right, so that's ridiculous that I didn't even respond to his question about self-funding or self-insuring for companies. And he mentions 50 people. Well, I'll tell you something right now. Partial self-funding is available to any size company if the insurance company is willing to help them accomplish that. And what they're doing is they're saying, we will assume the risk for part of our employees' medical treatment, and then the insurance company will step in when that risk or that expense has gotten to a certain level, and they'll take over payment for the rest of the year. So that limits the company's risk, but it offers the insurance company an opportunity to not have to pay for small, pesky, picky-unish claims, so they can charge the company less money for the insurance plan. It's that's for a small to medium-sized company, and that relationship can change to what is known as ASO, or Administrative Services Only, for a large company. And that's what will happen when the company is so large that they don't want to pay any, have the insurance, they don't want to pay any insurance premiums for insurance. They want to pay the insurance company for processing the claims and for acting as a whipping boy. In other words, an employee comes to work, and they think they have, let's say John Hancock health insurance as part of their employee benefit package. In reality, they have no insurance other than that guarantee that the company has told the insurance company, pay claims for all of our employees, and but don't pay for hangnails. For instance, we don't want to pay for any employee that has a hangnail, but you can pay all the other claims. Well, if I am an employee there and I think I've got John Hancock insurance and I get a hangnail, I go to the doctor and I say, fix my hangnail, and then I submit a claim to get reimbursed for the medical expense or to have my doctor paid. My employer, without my knowledge, has caused me to not to have that claim denied. And so therefore, I'm angry. I want somebody to pay for my hangnail or the cost of the medical treatment for the hangnail. The insurance company is who I'm mad at because I don't think about this on a daily basis, but my employer has made the decision to not cover hangnails, but he's told the insurance company to take the blame. That makes the insurance company a whipping boy. And the whipping boy process is one of the things that the employer is paying for when he has an ASO type of insurance with a big insurance company. And so when I say big, I'm talking thousands of employees. That's when you see ASO most often, because there is a risk of having a lot of employees get really, really sick. The most expensive things historically that I'm aware of, most expensive claims were burn victims. Those people are treated. I mean, we have a lot of technology to take care of burn victims, but it's incredibly expensive. And the other most expensive claim was premature babies. And so if the employer has a run of those types of really expensive claims, they're going to write a check to the insurance company to reimburse them for the payment of the claims, the treatment of those medical conditions. And then the employer or the insurance company that the employer has hired is going to be they're going to be concerned about this happening in the future. So they might suggest to the employer, how about a stop loss? And this is an insurance term that means that the employer pays a little bit more money for more protection. The insurance company will tell you, we'll pay your claims up to $1 million. Once you hit $1 million, then we will pay out of our own pockets from now on. We won't ask you for reimbursement. So it sounds a little complicated. Steve was dancing around this self-insurance idea for companies, and there's a middle ground. I wanted to tell Steve, you can get, fully insured if you're a small company. You just pay the premium and the insurance company pays from day one. You can be partially self-funded, which means, in a larger company, the employer wants to keep the cost down by assuming some of the risk, very much like my recommendation for high deductible Medicare supplement plans. If the person takes on some of the risk, but they're generally healthy, then they're going to benefit by having a much smaller premium cost. And then finally, there is the ASO concept, administrative services only, where the employer basically has almost no insurance or a very high deductible. And they're rolling the dice that they're going to spend less money paying the claims of their employees than they would if they were to pay an insurance company to pay those claims. So I hope I made that clear. This is, once again, Steve's questions. And I answered, I thought, in a very succinct way. And now I can't find my succinct answer to Steve's question. So anyway, I don't know where we are time-wise. Randy, have we burned up most of our...
We are running out of gas, Mr. Jones.
Okay, because I didn't start my stopwatch. It should have.
Or should we call it steam? Are we running on the railroad today, or are we running on some type of other conveyance?
Well, the greenie weenies would have us get rid of all fossil fuels. And so that means we'd have to use steam to fly airplanes, wouldn't we? What are we going to do with all the airplanes?
Well, I can't. Well, there is such a thing now, you've probably heard, as a totally electric airplane.
Really?
They're testing them now. The only problem with them is, when you're out over the ocean and you run out of battery power. It's a tough landing, but
Well, remember the guy that flew the Gossamer Albatross across the English Channel?
Yeah.
And he pedaled.
Yeah.
Well, what you could do if you've got a passenger plane and it's running on your, A or double A batteries, or what would it run on? Maybe C cells?
Yes. A bunch of C's.
Yeah. So let's say that they run out of juice halfway across the ocean. Well, you could just have pedals at every seat and tell the passengers to get to work to recharge those batteries.
I'll tell you one thing you'd want to make sure
And what's that?
that the passengers you let onto that plane were capable of pedaling at the appropriate level of ambition, because you couldn't afford to have any slackers.
You got a point there. And no little kids either, because they're not going to carry their weight.
No.
Leave the kids at home. If you're going to fly across the ocean, be prepared to have to do some work to get you to the other side.
Exactly. Well, we probably have a few things to, kind of normal business. Let me take care of the normal business here.
Please do, because I'm flummoxed with the painters and out.
I really want everybody on the, listening to the podcast to put a smile on Doug Jones' face by writing him at dbj@mlmmailbag.com. He's sitting up in the Fortress of Solitude in Cave Creek, and he's just looking for things to do, i.e. paint his house. Now, we don't know whether that was necessary or not, but that's what he's doing to keep himself busy. So write him and let him know that you've got some questions. And while you're doing that, while you're at your PC, get over to Amazon.com, buy some paperbacks, Medicare for the Lazy Man, buy some audios, Medicare for the Lazy Man, or buy some Kindle versions of it. It's all the same information. It's just how you want to receive it. And that is something that we would very much appreciate. But in the meantime, we certainly appreciate you listening to this podcast today, because without you, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun. But you have just spent about 32 and a half minutes with Doug Jones, the anti-insurance guy from Oklahoma, and now one of the only guys in Arizona, especially Cave Creek, that knows all the technical ramifications of the Bailey Rail Yard in North Platte, Nebraska.
Oh boy, why don't we talk about that one whole episode sometime? Of course,
we should.
One of us should go there first or do some research, and I'll wear my T-shirt, my E.T. Bailey Yard T-shirt.
How about your engineer's hat? You got one of those?
I did when I was a kid, and I don't think it's going to fit now. I don't even know if I have it, but it was quite stylish.
It was. Yeah, every kid wants one.
Yeah. And then, of course, I had a lantern that was given to me. My grandfather's best friend was the chairman of the board of the Pullman Company. And this guy lived in style along Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. And he somehow managed to find a gift for me, which was a lantern from, I think, the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. It was yellow.
Oh, sweet.
It was a heavy, heavy lantern, and it held one of these big giant batteries that they used back in the 50s and maybe the 40s and 50s. And typical of every toy that my family got for when we were little kids, the battery leaked all over the inside of that thing and corroded it and just turned it into a piece of crap. And I guess when you're on the railroad and you're using that lantern, you change the battery out when it starts to get dim before it actually leaks. But not in the Jones house.
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand. Well, it's too bad you still don't have that, because that would be really, really a nice piece of, memorabilia.
Battery technology back then was so poor, it didn't take very long to turn it into a rusty piece of garbage.
So there you go. Well, you have just pretty much nailed it down to the end of the podcast, Doug. So
already.
Say goodbye, Doug.
Thanks for joining us. Goodbye, Doug.
Bye-bye.